Two. There he is. What's up, Gaichu? The storage room that functions as Gaichu's cabin is cramped. Overheated mess. Is a cramped, overheated mess. Piles of old ship parts share space with tarnished cookware, flats of instant noodles, a collection of casts of clothes, and reams of diagnostic manuals for obsolete computer hardware. To top it all off, there is barely any light whatsoever. All of the bulbs in this room are missing. Gaichu is busily moving boxes around, apparently in an effort to carve out some personal space amid the junk that he shares his cabin with. As you enter, he cocks his head and turns around. Welcome to my sanctuary, Fist. I apologize for the lack of light. As I did not need it, Gobert took the bulbs for use elsewhere. Gaichu puts down the box that he's in the process of moving and politely bows his head towards you. How can I be of assistance? What do you think of the Kraken? Gaichu glares towards the ceiling. After a moment, he extends a hand, palm up. A single drop of leaking oil falls from it. I am shocked that it has not sunk and drowned us all, to be perfectly honest. But it is as much of a home than anywhere else I have stayed in Hong Kong, and I am certain fewer people would stumble upon me and try to kill me. For now, it will suffice. Any thoughts about that last run? I'm not certain what insight I could grant you. I was not present for that mission, so my understanding of it is purely second-hand. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about you being a ghoul. Gaichu inclines his head. As you wish. You are my benefactor, and as such, I yield to you. Ask them. I will do my best to answer. Aside from being blind, how has it affected you? Aside from my heightened senses of smell and hearing, I am stronger, tougher, and more resilient than any mundane human. I can achieve feats of physicality that are normally restricted to adepts and those with extensive enhancements. He lifts one hand, fingers crooked to show off his elongated nails. Claws, really. These as well. As sharp as any small knife. I prefer my sword, but in a grapple they come in extremely handy. Draws one nail over the surface of his shoulder plates. A hair-fine spiral of armor peels off in the nail's wake. Do you still need to sleep? Chuckles, his laughter rasping out of his lips. Unfortunately, I do. I'm not an undead creature of legend. If I manage to unlock the secret of rest without sleep, I will be certain to inform you. It seems like your condition has stabilized. For now, it has. I will not suddenly become a ravenous beast lurking in the hold of your ship. At least, no more so than I am. Oh wait, no more so than I already am. Gaichu bares his teeth in a wry grin, dipping his head a little. Why did you pick the name Gaichu anyway? It was given to me. This is what the Japanese call ghouls, for the most part. I'm vermin, a thing shunned by polite society, to be hunted and slain for a bounty. My old life is gone. It seems as apt a name for the streets as any other that I could choose. I guess that makes sense, sure. It turns the tables of power. Gaichu dips his head in agreement. One does not defeat the enemy solely by strength of arms. One must turn one's own weaknesses into strengths. It is an old and valuable lesson, too often forgotten. Your armor is a lot heavier than most Shadowrunners were, and more distinctive too. Ah, you don't have corporate etiquette. Gaichu nods, growling in assent. That is correct. It is the armor worn by the elite soldiers of the Renraku corporate military, the Red Samurai. What are the Red Samurai? The Renraku's military special operations division. Most elite of the corporation has to offer, on par with Aris Firewatch or Tengaira's Ghosts. Red Samurai World-class soldiers, assigned only to the most difficult and important missions. That armor is a rare thing for a Shadowrunner to have. That is true. It's considerably less rare for a Red Samurai to have a suit of it, however, even if he goes rogue. So you were a Red Samurai? I mean, he did say it before. Indeed, for the entirety of my adult life, I was a member of the Renrak military, specifically the Red Samurai. That changed relatively recently. I feel the reasons are abundantly clear. Hence, I still possess my armor, my sword, my training. They have served me well in both my previous life and in this one. How did you end up running the shadows? No, how did you end up being a ghoul? Gaisha rasps out a coughing laugh that reverberates through the cramped room. What other employment is appropriate for a cannibal whose only previous experience is in military operations? There are not many things I know how to do. This is one of them. You weren't always a ghoul, though. In theory, Red Samurai who are wounded are given the best in medical treatment and cybernetics. If these are insufficient to return them to active duty, they are given a pension and retired. In practice, this is never the case. Red Samurai teams do everything together: eat, sleep, train, play. We learn to think for each other, move as a single entity. When part of our team is broken, it affects everyone. Gaicho runs his claws over his scalp, sighing. The other members of the unit would be distracted, thinking about a wounded comrade, and would resent a new member for usurping the old member's place. So the wounded invariably take the same course of action. For the good of the team, ritual suicide, seppuku. That's an interesting way to ensure unit cohesion. Perhaps in the UCAS or other Western countries it would not be necessary. For us, the laws of etiquette are different. Some call it extreme, but it is always done willingly. Or almost always, I should say. In my case, I became infected while on a sabotage mission against Shiawase in Osaka. The unit was exfiltrating on foot from Naniwa Ward through the Irin Chico slums. We had not anticipated a ghoul nest on our route. My surprise got the better of me, and I was bitten. I understand that since the passage of the Yamato Act, Japan is a pure country. Metahumans are deported and to be infected with the HMHBV is to be less than an animal. Oh, so that's like the ghoul virus, I guess. I think they explained what this means, but I don't remember what it was. It is to be less than an animal. You will be killed on sight. Since this was in effect the same as being permanently crippled in the eyes of a team, it was expected that I would kill myself. Why didn't you? Because I was still capable of fighting. I questioned the necessity of suicide. Why should I die if I was still as effective as before? Was I not worth having simply because of my diet changed? One does not discard a quality tool simply because the surface is stained. I made the decision to leave while the unit was allowing me time to prepare for my expected suicide. I took nothing but my weapons, armor, and a small number of personal mementos. I knew that the unit would hunt me down and kill me. Fools are considered vermin in Japan. Have a red samurai become one and refuse to die? Unconscionable. Yeah, unconscionable. But whatever. Unbelievable. I'm tired. Let me just drink something. Okay. How long did it take them to find you? They found me 2 weeks after I ran. I was careless as I fled south, and they caught up with me in Fukuoka. But I escaped, barely. was at that point I decided that I should leave Japan. I knew they would not stop hunting me, but I could make it more difficult for them. Okay. How did you end up in Hong Kong? I was searching for a cure. I needed a place where I could disappear into the shadows, find work, and evade capture if a cure did not materialize. The Yamato Act meant that it was even more dangerous to be in Japan than anywhere else. Daichi smiles thinly, leaning back on his heels. I went to China, primarily because I still hoped to be able to return home. It felt less final if I fled to somewhere nearby. I went first to Shanghai, but Renraku's presence there is significantly more robust than in Hong Kong. I learned that my previous unit had not stopped hunting me after I left Japan, so I decided to move further afield. Yoichi unfurls his hands, claws pointing towards the ceiling. Hence, Hong Kong. Where else can anyone arrive and disappear without the city carrying one whit? Well, Berlin seems a good spot. Perhaps 5 years ago. The recent upheavals and the newly iron-fisted Söder-Krupp influence filled me with trepidation. The flux state is no more. Long live the corporate Berlin of the future. Since arriving here, I've drifted between neighborhoods, selling my services to those who are unafraid of my appearance and condition. Archie frowns deeply. It has not been as profitable as I'd hoped. Did you grow up in a corporation? Yes, in Keihanshin, the Kyoto-Osaka Kobe sprawl. It is less populated than Neo Tokyo, but not by much. I grew up in East Kobe, where my father was posted in a Renraku complex. Gocho roots around in a nearby box, running his fingertips over several chips before deciding on one. He slots it into his PDA and a treat photo flickers the light in the space between you. A young man, obviously Garcho, leans against a railing which overlooks a sprawling harbor complex of skyscrapers and cranes. His school uniform is ripped, and the beginnings of a black eye are forming. Abrasions cover his knuckles, and blood dots his pants. Despite this, he's grinning like he's just won the lottery, vibrant. Yes. You look a little beat up. That must be on Mount Maya. If I remember right, I gave better than I got in that fight. 3 against 1, but they were out of shape and cocky. I used to cause a lot of trouble when I was in school. My father was constantly raging that I had no sense of responsibility and that I needed to take life more seriously. A cackle erupts from Gaichu, sudden mirth spreading across his face. Final straw was when he bailed me out of jail. I've been in jail a few times. What did you do? My friends and I stole a delivery van. They had a shipment of Shirawase Simpsons decks. Brand new, very expensive. We are going to fence them and use the money to take a trip to Okinawa. Gaichi pauses, cocking his head. Are you familiar with what it's like to grow up in a corporate family? Not really, no. You have to understand, children are trained to hate rival corporations. We did not regard the theft of Shirawase goods as illegal. We were simply doing our part to ensure Renraku's supremacy. This kind of behavior is ignored and even tacitly encouraged by company media. Unfortunately, we are caught by Shirawase security, not Renraku. Do you think your father approved, even secretly? I doubt it very much. For him, the activity was not the issue. It was that I was caught and embarrassed both the company and him. He is very much a man who believes that there is a proper way to do things, and I had once again cut corners. So what did your dad do next? Gaichi clicks his tongue a few times. He seems reluctant to continue. That is a story for another time, unfortunately. I still have a lot of arranging to do, and I doubt anyone else will be willing to be alone with me in a darkened room. Come back later. We can discuss it further. Okay, if that's what you want. It is, and thank you again for your hospitality. Let's talk more. Oh hey, there was something to look at. The cabin is in a far better state than it was previously. The heat has been adjusted down and the ventilation restored. The boxes of junk and parts have been stacked and neatly arranged, and Gaichu's small amount of personal gear is tucked away in a corner. There is a small mat in the center of the cabin that looks like it doubles as both a rug and a sleeping pad. Gaichu is seated in the lotus position, eyes closed. His fingertips rest on a braille reader that is plugged into his PDA. The device fills the room with a soft clicking from the pin combinations. As you approach, he lifts his hands from the reader's surface. Hello again, Fist. Is there something I can assist you with? Well, looks like you've been making this place your home, huh? If you say so. I doubt it would be suitable for others, but I do not require much in the way of space. By the way of space, I have few possessions. So long as I have a quiet area in which I can sit and relax, I am happy. Now, what is it that you wish to discuss? What you reading? Actually draws... Oh, academic. Actually draws himself up, holding his palms in his laps. With one toe, he pushes the braille reader away. It is called Hagakure, Hidden Leaves. Written by Yamamoto Tsunetomo, as a treatise on what it means to be a samurai, and how one should best serve one's lord. Required reading for the Red Samurai, unsurprisingly. You're reliving some old memories? Not so much old memories as old lessons. Gaichu smiles sharply, running a claw across the line of his jaw. I have many scars to remember my mistakes by, and each one seems to evoke a passage from the book. The author has a central thesis. When there is a question of life and death, always choose death. Wait, what? Throw oneself into the fray with no resignations and act on instinct alone. My current state of affairs speaks the truth of this more robustly than any lesson in a dojo. What's the rest of the book about? Gaichu ticks off the points by unfurling successive fingers. It's partly a manual for proper behavior towards one's lord, partly a rumination on the mindset required to be victorious in combat, and partly a collection of stories. Tsunetomo believed that to truly embody the virtues of a samurai, adherents should be mindful of the path at all times, never stop training, always question how one's actions reflect on their lord. Above all, be prepared to do your duty instinctively, at any time, no matter the cost. It seems better suited to a ghoul than a man, honestly. Spreading his palms, Gaichu bows his head in assent. Some might take offense at that assessment, but I am inclined to agree. I do not plan with the same efficacy as I once did, but I would not curse the tiger for relying on its instinct. Why should I not make use of mine? Yeah, that's a fair point. I'm glad that you feel that way. I suspect many would be worried about the ghoul choosing to embrace his instincts, given the connotations of such a choice, but I am certain that I can maintain my sense of self regardless. Okay, what does he say about a masterless samurai like you? 7 times down, 8 times up. Gaichu smiles thinly, wrapping a claw on the hilt of his sword. More specifically, the samurai has not been a ronin at least 7 times. Then he has not truly lived a samurai. Those were different times, however. It was common for samurai to fall out of favor with their lord and be turned loose to wander. For company men like myself, the choice is to serve or die. Is there anything else you would like to discuss? Yeah, more about what it's like to be a ghoul. He cocks his head at you, his milky eyes narrowing mirthfully. Preparing for the eventuality of killing me and collecting the bounty. Make sure you leave my face intact. I would prefer to be well preserved trophy. Oh, don't worry, I'm gonna have it stuffed and mounted on my wall. Gaichu bares his teeth in a rictus grin. You can hear a faint chuckle rumble in the back of his throat. Now that would be an illustrious end to my career. Severed head decorating a leaking wreck of a boat, home to extremely private individuals will never show me up. Couldn't you show it to a museum or something of that sort? Gaichi grows serious, leaning back. If you wish to know about what it's like to be me, ask away. I see no reason to conceal the details of my condition. So you eat people. What is it like? What is it like? Actually, I ate his dinner once. So I ate a person, a part of a person. Gaichi blinks a few times and cocks his head as if to stare at the ceiling. What is it like to eat anything else? Before a diabetic take insulin. It is like that, a fact of life. I have found that most people are revolted by the concept of eating the flesh of humans rather than the act itself. Taking an isolation of social concerns, humans are no more or less edible than most mammals. Flesh can be of poor or high quality depending on all the factors you would expect: diet, lifestyle, etc. I prefer to prepare my meals as I would sashimi, light garnish and flavoring, but with an emphasis on the taste of the base meat. Do I enjoy it? No, not especially. Some Japanese are fond of pork and chicken sashimi, but I have never been one of them. I don't think you can eat either chicken or pork raw. Sashimi is the raw one, I think it was. Raw meat. Yeah, you don't eat raw pork or raw chicken because it can make you sick. Sometimes, I think it's sometimes okay to eat raw beef. Yeah, because I ate some and it was fine. Tar, I think it was called. Gaichi shrugs helplessly. But it is a fact I must accept. And if it is how things will be, I will make the best of it. Do you feel bad about having to eat people? No. I was never a vegetarian, so why should I? Gaichu seems puzzled by the question, as if he's missing nuances of meaning. It does not matter where the meat comes from. Someone who died in a car accident is as viable as someone I kill. I admit, I have eaten people that I have killed, but that was of necessity. I was going to kill them anyway. Why let their bodies go to waste? Okay, why don't you stink? Diet and cleanliness. Most ghouls eat rotten flesh and do not bathe. I eat fresh meat and bathe regularly. That was a very mundane answer. That made a lot of sense. Okay, are you immortal? Considering this, Gaichi leans over into one elbow. I have no idea. I do not believe there have been any organized studies of ghoul longevity. Most strains of the human metahuman vampiric virus. Okay, that's the HMHBV virus. Impart a semblance of extended life, but I do not believe that the Krieger strain is one. Somehow, I think it is more likely that I will die in combat than of old age, no matter how long I live. Well, it might be interesting to ask a doctor. To what end? I live by the sword, and I will die by it. I have no illusions about my chances of growing old. Archie shakes his head in dismissal. How would I live out my days? In a rural country village, eating people who happen to expire on nearby roads? That will not be my fate. What's the deal with your teeth? What deal are you referring to? Did you file them down into those points? No. They are actually new teeth, created by the infection. I suppose it is a natural advantage to have teeth better suited for carnivorous pursuits. Okay, bye-bye. Oh yeah, you were talking about your father bailing you out of jail. Ah yes, I do recall you asking about that. Gaichu's reticence is palpable in the long silence that follows. He does not continue. Is something the matter? No, Gaichu purses his lips and sighs heavily. No, everything is fine. I will tell you what you wish to know. I simply have not spoken to my family in a long time. Bad memories? No, quite good ones actually. I haven't seen Yasujiro in many years, but that is my fault. We may not have seen eye to eye when I was young. We came to an understanding, eventually. Is Yasujiro his father's name? I guess. Why would you call your father by his given name? Yasujiro gave me an ultimatum after my run-in with the Shiawase security. He told me that he had cut a backroom deal with a rival in Shiawase to keep me out of prison. Charges would be suspended if I finished high school and studied at Kyoto University with the intent of joining Renraku. If I did not, Shiawase would take me into custody and I would spend time in prison. I'm surprised he cut a deal at all. On some level, I am as well. Those sorts of deals are made all the time between middle managers who compete across corporations, but they are always frowned upon. Usually, they are also illegal. I think I took him for granted before that day. I had always taken my family for granted. Raised in a Renraku family, going to Renraku schools, I always had a sense of place, of belonging where I was. The thought of all of that vanishing, I simply could not imagine it. Suddenly, the reality of my actions became clear. Gaicha runs his fingers over his bald scalp, smiling distantly. From then on, I tried to be the son he wanted, and he seemed glad for it. We grew much closer over the next few years. He took time off to visit me when I was living in Kyoto. Why would that be unusual? He was a very busy man those days. A lot of responsibility, and a very little time for himself. I was impressed that he could carve off as much time as he did, just to go camping with his son. Oh, a lot of nice wilderness in that part of Japan, I guess. Very much so. The land around Kyoto is protected from development, due to historical and cultural significance. Most of the mountains are considered sacred, so the Diet declared them a national preserve. We made several trips to the area between Kyoto and Nara. Nara is the place where there's those deer, right? You give them snacks. Around the village of Ida, we camped in the mountains above it. We would hunt wild deer and boar there, using my family's antique arquebus. That's a strange choice of weapon. It is a choice of expediency. It is nearly impossible for a private citizen to own a firearm in Japan, which is why you may so often read of Yakuza attacks involving swords and cleavers. As the Tanegashima that my family owns is... Oh, as the Tanegashima that my family owns is from the 18th century, it is exempt from ordinary regulation. I guess the Tanegashima is the arquebus. Gaichi chuckles softly to himself. Perhaps, ironically, hunting with my father is how I learned to prepare raw meat. Strange to think that such activities served as training for my current state of affairs. So how do you prepare it? Soak the meat in brine water and simmer it at a low heat for several hours. Let it cool and repeat the process over several days. It cannot get too hot, or I am unable to eat it. This process brings out the collagen in the meat. When it is done, I spice it with ginger and sansho pepper. Again, not too much. Mundane food is anathema to me. Sighing happily, Gaicho stares off into the distance. When he looks back, he smiles broadly at you. Those were good days. I'm sorry I cannot go back to those times. When one joins the Red Samurai, one must give up all attachments of one's previous life, company, the code, the unit, and the unit become the entirety of your world. That's an incredible amount of focus. It is. That is why the selection process is so rigorous, and so many fail. There is no shame in failing. Simply being allowed to participate in the test is a mark of excellence. Applicants must be human, Japanese, and utterly devoted to Renraku. Your unit becomes your family. Your commander is your father and mother, and your teammates your siblings. Red Samurai are not allowed to reveal our identities and positions to anyone outside the Special Operations Group. Even if you wanted friends outside the unit, you could not have them. Okay, so how did you end up joining the Renraku military? Ah, Fair question. Given my youthful indiscretions. He actually leans back, his blind eyes turned forward towards the ceiling. Are you familiar with Tempeitai? No? But apparently I would be if I was academic. What's that? Tempeitai are the political arm of the Japanese military, much like the commissars of the Soviet Union. They are responsible for enforcing political and social orthodoxy. This is not just within the army, mind you. They also enforce certain laws with regard to the general populace. When I was enrolled in Kyoto University, I studied global security and political science. It is the major generally used as a gateway to private security postings with both government and corporate militaries. I knew I wanted to fight. I was a young man, and my blood was always up. One of the requirements was that the students join the Youth Brigade Kempeitai. The Youth Brigade is a lot like the ROTC in North America, the Young Falcons in the Sioux Nations, or the District Officer Program in the Republic of Korea. Members learn to be soldiers without actually joining the army. They perform community service and promote civic pride. Performance and prestige in the Kempeitai used to dictate later job opportunities, a bit like a good internship. You enjoy it? Not at first. Later it became pleasant. Power is a heady thing, especially for a youth who has few superiors to answer to. We developed a sense of superiority over others and began to abuse our power. I believe that may have been part of the point. They want you to feel superior? Yes. I believe that the purpose of the Youth Brigade is to teach students to glorify the group over the individual, already a strong concept in Japanese culture. In so doing, the students are prepared for the realities of their future relationship with a corporation. We did as we were taught. Such is the way of authority of the young. Gaichu shrugs indifferently. What kind of things did you do? The details do not matter overmuch. Forced our way into homes under false pretense to intimidate families. We encouraged children to inform on their parents, accepted bribes to look the other way. If we were in the mood, or had people arrested for said bribery, if we are not. Petty behavior, but such things are encouraged. When I was nearing graduation, I was approached by a recruiter with the Renraku security. She told me I came from a good family, would have a promising career in the company. She offered to fast-track my application towards a potential Red Samurai position. 3 years with the Renraku military as a junior officer, and guaranteed placement in the Red Samurai training billet by choosing. The pay was good, the excitement of being an elite was an attractive proposition. I accepted, but I did not truly understand what I was signing up for. As I told you before, they force you to give up everything except the company and unit. That was made clear to me, but I did not really understand it. What happened? Exactly what you would expect happened. I signed the contract, became a soldier in Renraku's army, was physically fit, at the top of my class, and it seemed inevitable I would see my desires fulfilled. Gaicho wraps 2 knuckles on his breastplate. Obviously, I succeeded. Training was extremely difficult, both mentally and physically. I knew that I would be isolated from my old life, but I did not anticipate the full extent of the isolation. All Red Samurai recruits report to a facility called the Forge in Shiba. You are assigned a unit. You and 4 other recruits. And for the next 2 years, the Forge will be your home and prison. Shaking his head wistfully, Gaucho snorts. It seems ridiculous in retrospect. We were all so young. None of us had any idea what we were doing, except trying to become the best soldiers in the world. And yet those strangers became my new family, in the absence of the old. Okay, tell me about your unit. Gaicho wrinkles his nose as if smelling something foul. That chapter of my life is over and done with, and they are no longer part of my world. Why would you care about any of that? I mean, they are still haunting you. I need to know about them in case they attack us, so I can kill them better. Stares at you for a long, silent moment. Finally, he grunts. Very well. That is a fair point. Gaichi looks down on his hands, picking something out from beneath one claw. Continues to look at his hands while he speaks. When I was younger, I would have more readily cut off my fingers than tell you what you ask. You must understand the secrecy is absolute among the Red Samurai. Your identity becomes secret, erased from any database that might connect you to the Red Samurai. You use only your code name when in the field, and your given name is known only to your commanders and your unit. Even other Red Samurai units have no idea who you really are. Finally looking up from his hands, Gaichi leans back against the boxes. Contact with the outside world is cut off completely. Even once training is over, your communications are restricted. Maintaining relationships outside of those you work with is frowned upon. Oh, that's a lot of stress. What if recruits can take it? Very few recruits get to this point if they can't handle it. We all underwent stringent psychological tests prior to this point. If the recruit can handle it, he and the rest of his unit are failed out of the program. The rationale is simple. One member cannot take the training and his unit cannot carry him through. They all have all failed. Ishida was our commander. He came from a rich family in Saitama. The kind of family where he was given every advantage possible. The expectation that he would keep the family name prestigious. He was older than the rest of us, as he'd already spent 6 years in the army. A very severe man, rarely given to humor. Akagawa was usually the second in command. As a designated marksman, he tended to have a better tactical view of how an operation should be run, simply because he needed to study the terrain more. He loved to get us laughing. Without him, I think I would have gone crazy in the first few months. Our major's name was Sasaki. She had been in training as a Miko, an apprentice priestess, and her magic began to manifest. She was in the unit for the challenge, and for the money. Her family had always been poor, and they had always told her she would never amount to anything. I think she had joined the Red Samurai just to prove them that she could do anything she wanted. Was she hard to work with? Smiles distantly. No, actually. Quite the opposite. She was excellent at encouraging us to go above and beyond what we thought ourselves capable of. I think part of her secret was that she never actually questioned if she could accomplish any of her goals. She simply assumed that it was inevitable. A heavy gunner's name was Aomori. He kept the team honest with itself. He never had a disparaging word for anyone, but would not hesitate to call someone out on their behavior. Sasaki loved that about him, really. She loved all of them. Two were discreet. Discretion only goes so far in such a small team. Still, we respected their privacy where possible. Is that kind of thing allowed? If the unit commander allows it, yes. We were giving incredibly wide leeway in what to allow or forbid in our unit. Everything, the belief being that results were the only thing that mattered. The unit failed, it would fail as a whole. Sasaki and Aomori were crazy about each other, and it would have done more harm to keep them apart. Lastly, there was me. I was a close quarters and breaching expert, the first man in the door when we had to clean a room. I was the perfectionist on the team. Aomori could get us to do anything, but I was the one who made certain we did it well, with style. How do you mean? But the thing is worth doing, it is worth doing well. That thing is also your duty, it is worth doing perfectly. Many times we'd perform a drill or exercise well enough. That was not good enough. I had to trust my life on it. That was why we became one of the best teams in the organization's history. Well, that's a thing to be proud of. Oh, shit, I misclicked. Apparently you missed some. Gaichi growls, his tone annoyed. Of course I do. They were my family for 8 years. Who wouldn't miss that? That sense of belonging and shared values. Even if I were to be cured, I could never go back. They have been disgraced, and I have done unforgivable things. I have been cast out for good. What do you mean? Gaichi closes his eyes, sighing through his noise. When they ambushed me in Fukuoka, it was a fight or die. I killed 2 of them before I escaped. I will not be returning to the unit, no matter what. Oh, who did you kill? Opens his eyes after a moment, shoulders slumping. I think he may have killed the Miko. And maybe the sniper. No, actually, maybe the first guy. He opens his eyes after a moment, shoulders slumping. It's not an easy memory to grapple with. That's fine, take your time. Thank you, Fist. I'm sorry I cannot talk more about it now, but I need to process the emotions. They are still raw. I'm tired. Come back later. We can talk more. What's this? Aichi's box of personal effects is overflowing with a collection of souvenirs, mementos, and knickknacks. There's no rhyme or reason to the collection of items. They appear to have been thrown in haphazardly. Laying atop the box are a collection of antique Japanese coins inside an overturned wooden mask. A black, lacquered box with golden inlay. Aichi cocks his head, sniffing the air in your direction. Ah, I see you have found my box of personal effects. Please feel free to examine whatever you like within it. Just take care to put them back when you are done. I do not own much. Things I keep are very precious to me. They are all that remains of my former life. Hey, what about the box? The mask. The wooden mask is extremely light. It's been painted a pale white. The surface is almost as smooth as porcelain. Although it lacks the sheen of lacquer, the face's traits are delicate, almost feminine, and feature lifted eyebrows, bright red lips, and delicately carved teeth. The teeth have been stained a deep black, barely visible as the slightly parted lips. The expression, while kindly, is ambiguous and uncanny. Viewed from above, the expression is one of calm contentment. Shifting the mask to view it at an upward angle causes the expression to seem melancholy, almost pained. What's this wooden mask, Gaichu? It's a mask from the historical No play, Ikuta Atsumori. The face is that of a young samurai, Taira no Atsumori. Gaichu faces your direction, gesturing towards the mask. I had a collection of a dozen or so No masks when I was younger. That is the last remaining one, and my personal favorite. What's the play about? A young man travels with a priest who raised him to Ikuta Shrine, commune with the spirit of his father, Taira no Atsumori. The young man's father died at the Battle of Ichinotani when the son was only a baby, and he wishes to know who his father was. The pair stay the night in a small hut. In the night, hermit in the hut explains that he is the ghost of Atsumori. Atsumori has been granted a brief reprieve from his time in the afterlife to meet his son. During the night, they speak of the battle in which Atsumori was killed, the history of the Taira family, and their philosophy. Atsumori fades into darkness as he finishes the tale of Taira's downfall, just as the family itself faded into obscurity. So think we, yet oh that we might change this fragile dream of joy into the lasting love of waking life, says Atsumori, before fading. It is a tale of sorrow, love, and the burden of war upon the dead and living alike. The price one pays for war is not always in one's own blood alone, but in the shattering of one's own family. What's the difference between a normal play and a No? No actors wear those masks to cover their faces. The angle they hold themselves at changes the expression in the mask, so the acting is highly rigid and controlled. The entire performance is highly ritualized. There is no measure of improvisation allowed, only refinement of the prescribed form. Gaichi folds his arms over his chest, dipping his chin in thought. Words are snug, like a western opera, and accompanied by a set of musicians known as Hayashi. The Hayashi keeps time with several drums, a flute, and a chorus. Chorus in the Greek theatrical sense, I mean. Unfortunately, No is an unpopular art in modern times. I expect this is because all the plays are conducted in classical Japanese, which is not comprehensible to the general public. I have heard that the creators of No, father and a son in the 14th century, took inspiration from magical rituals at Shinto shrines. It is said that by placing masks upon their face, The actors become possessed by the spirits of the character they play. There are worse fates, I think, and to embody the spirit of a tragic warrior like Atsumori. Why is this your favorite? Gaucho smiles, expression distant. A measure of civic pride, I suppose, and I like the story. Taira no Atsumori died at the Battle of Ichinotani, just outside Kobe. The play takes place primarily at Ikuta Shrine, which is located in downtown Kobe. In old cities in Japan, especially in Heihanshin, I have always felt there is a sense of history wherever one looks. The skyline may have skyscrapers and delivery drones, but the foundations are laid on the bones of the dead. Aichi shrugs, folding his arms across his chest. I think it's important to remember their sacrifices, and joys, sorrows, and glories. Aichi laughs suddenly, shaking his head. This is why sometimes I worry that I'm a sentimentalist at heart. Okay? What about the box with the golden inlays? The box is a deep, glossy black cube. The edges and corners are rounded rather than sharp, and the gold flake inlay across the surface glitters even in the dim light of the room. Sliding to top of, the interior contents are revealed. Calligraphy set, complete with inkstone and block, brushes and paper. Gaucho wrinkles his nose, his expression one of distaste. Ah, that thing. It's a beautiful set, but it is a shame that I am unable to make use of it. Because you're blind? Gaucho snorts derisively, stifling laughter. No, my handwriting has always been absolutely terrible. Whatever fanciful stories you may have heard of being able to tell a swordsman's ability by his handwriting, I assure you that they are wrong. That was a gift from a professor of Japanese literature. He appreciated my interest in the classics. Tale of the Heike, the Tale of Genji, collection of 10,000 leaves, etc. I think he wished to encourage me to cultivate non-martial interests. Gaichi smiles crookedly and shrugs. I appreciated the gesture, for my attempts at fine calligraphy mostly resembled excited chickens prancing over paper, their feet soaked in ink. Okay.